Republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Whoa! Are we good? The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, second, third, and fourth. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've never resonated so much in my life.
Sean, there you are, for our Sergeant in Arms report.
I didn't grab a visitor list, so.
We will count everybody as not visitors today. Wah, 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 wah. Oh, it's still resonating. So we will count folks as visitors. We know that John and Connie are with us today. We got a big Who Day win out of it. So they're happy about that, I'm sure. And some are not going to be happy about this, but I can guarantee you that John Salyers was happy as a pig when Northern took down UC. Dancing in the aisles up there. Great to honor John and Connie. Connie was very involved with my son's life and education. Wonderful person. She was the lace of the leather and lace. If you know John, he might not have been as lacy on a regular basis. My one quick John story is we were playing high school baseball at babyhood. John was an earlier cop, but John was an umpire for the high school teams, and John became Jim Bunning's right-hand man. And believe it or not, John was the softer of the Jim and John show, if you could believe that. Playing high school baseball, playing Lloyd. John shouldn't have been umpiring anyway, because he's all about earlier. Lloyd loved that. So I got Doc Morris as the home plate umpire, and Doc Morris would have a propensity to spit tobacco on people. Whenever anybody would disagree with his call, he would spit tobacco on. Guy from Lloyd, I catch strike three, throw the ball around there, the guy from Lloyd just stands there. Doc looks out at John and says, John, we got a problem here. Guy's not moving. The Doc, check it out. Doc goes back and grabs the rule book. Same rules as last year. 3 strikes, you're out. Go, John.
All right. Announcements. There is no meeting next week, November 28th. So we get a week off next week. We have 2 Christmas concerts coming up, 2 dates. December 5th at Lakeside Church and December 12th at the Creation Museum. Both concerts are 6:30 to 9 p.m. Sign for Toy Foundation. Our goal is 4,000 toys. Please let Roger know by December 2nd. There he is. Roger, know by December 2nd if you want to participate, how many collection boxes you want, and how many promotional posters that you want. Oh, okay. All right, I will get that updated. And then it is my pleasure to introduce Greg Palmer, who will be talking about the Rotary International Foundation.
Hey, Greg.
Hi, Greg.
Okay. Sound like Gary.
Yeah.
Pat, I saw you there. Say it with me. It's a great day to be a Rotarian.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I asked Adam when he was putting the agenda together if I could have a minute to talk about John and his wife and their involvement with Rotary Foundation over the years. You know, they had many passions. Their family was first. Church. Connie was an educator her entire life. Perhaps Republican politics was top of the list. Certainly Rotary was there. Because of John's experience and connections in DC, at one point after he'd been our district governor, he was appointed as a Rotary representative to the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. This started in 1989 when, as Rotarians, we set our mind to eliminating polio from the world. And as part of that initiative, John got to go to Africa and help with inoculating children against polio. And you've seen the picture. Covered over, he's got his yellow Rotary hat on, got a dropper with the polio vaccine on above the mouth of a young child. And every time John told that story, he would get emotional because it was that important. It made such a difference in his life. Year to date, this year, there have been 22 cases of wild polio recognized in only 2 countries, Pakistan and Afghanistan. Those are the only 2 countries that are still endemic with wild polio. There have been several cases outside those countries of what's called virus or vaccine-derived polio, which is just as devastating, but if you've been vaccinated, cannot be infected by that strain. So the battle line is in Afghanistan and Pakistan. We have to stop it there. We have to get everybody vaccinated. If we can keep it that way, keep it from spreading out of those 2 countries, then we've got a real opportunity to declare the world polio free. That takes money. John raised money. He did a good job of that. But today, as we recognize what we're doing locally with this Hand Up grant, I also want us to think about what we do as Rotarians globally. John and Connie both recognize the significance of an organization like ours, which is global. We have members everywhere. We have clubs everywhere. Because of our foundation, we have money everywhere to be used to do good things in the world. So I ask that you think about this sometime this week, later today, tonight, tomorrow. It's going to cross your mind that today's program was meaningful in some way. You heard something or smiled at a memory of John and Connie. When that thought comes across your mind, I ask that you go to endpolio.org. Endpolio.org to make a contribution to continue John's legacy of fighting polio across the world. The first gift to the Polio Foundation was made in 1970. It was an amount of $26.50. Now, I don't know where in the world that number came from. But today, $26.50 will buy 44 doses of polio vaccine. I ask that you make a gift. And when you go online to endpolio.org, you'll have the opportunity to make it in the name of whoever you want. I'm going to make one in the name of John and Connie Salyers. Thank you for your time.
I had just a little bit on many of you probably know Dr. Christopher Orr, all here society. $1,000 a year. I took that over. I took the all here society membership over with a year. More than double the number of other.
Today. All right. It is my pleasure to introduce Wayne Kroliker, who's going to come up and talk about the Salyers campus.
Switch. Three mics. Oh, no, just two. Just switching. Well, I thought we would start off with just a few. I want to introduce myself to those of you whom I don't know. My name's Adam Howard. I'm a former recipient of Rotary's generosity. About 25 years ago, I was the Florence Rotary Club scholarship recipient. In that particular situation, there was a committee that came down to two particular recipients for this Rotary Club scholarship. They had a hard time deciding between the two. They only had $1,000 just to award. So the committee decided to vote for one of the persons and then write a check for the other one. And whenever everything was settled, they had enough money from that committee to provide two scholarships at $1,000 each. I like to think I was the one that you voted in favor of, but regardless, I was one of the recipients that year for that scholarship. I'm also a past president of Florence Rotary. I had the distinction and the honor to be the club president whenever John was the district governor. John and Connie both lived a life of service. John was a veteran, was a police officer, and a staff member for a member of Congress. I got to meet John whenever he represented Senator Bunning and I represented Senator McConnell. So we would travel up and down the AA highway. I got to play the good cop. John got to play the bad cop. I would say things like, it's a really tough budget year. We've got a lot of requests. And John would say, no, it's a stupid idea and we're not going to fund it. So if you know John and to love John, you would know what I speak of is true. Connie dedicated her life to education. She spent 30 years in the classroom. She was a nationally certified teacher. She taught middle school. I don't need to say much more than that. She was at R.A. Jones and Ackerman. Funny thing about Connie, she always insisted that I was one of her former students. And I had to continue to remind her I was never at any of her middle school, but eventually I just stopped correcting her and went with it. Both of them were very committed to their family. We're delighted to have Meredith Salyers Lewis here with us today, and Beth Salyers Barker, and then Don Barker, Beth's husband. They were definitely dedicated to their faith, and they also certainly loved all things NKU basketball. Connie was very involved in John and Connie, but more so Connie, were very involved in the Revive ministry, which was a ministry that exists to try and help women who were former prostitutes or drug addicts to be able to get back on their feet, and specifically to help introduce a faith element to their life. So they had all kinds of different ways that they were dedicated and committed to helping out other people. I do have one note here that I need to share with you. Since I worked for McConnell and John worked for Bunning, John hazed me severely. We would gather and just time after time, I'll share with you one story and then I'll tell you when the hazing stopped. So in 2004, I went to work for Senator McConnell. 2005, my wife and I introduced our first child into the world. 2007, we introduced our second child into the world. And then in about probably late summer or early fall of 2008, I mentioned to John, we would gather for breakfast regularly. And I said to John, Annette is expecting again. So we had a baby in 2005 and then a baby in 2007. And now we've got another one coming in 2009. John looks at me and he says, Adam, I don't care what it takes. We're going to find the son of a bitch that did this to you. Fortunately, Meredith and I went to high school together. And I'm serious. If I could remember that date, as soon as Meredith vouched for me to her dad, that's whenever, I don't want to say the hazing stopped, but it just kind of dialed back a little bit. Thank you. I appreciate that. So whenever this, so John and Connie made a contribution to the Florence Rotary Foundation of $10,000. I was made aware of that on the day whenever Billy Santos was inducted into the Florence Rotary Heritage Hall of Fame. And I came to that particular meeting. Billy had asked me to say a few remarks, and I came to that particular meeting. That was going to be the meeting where I said, I'm going to just start to bow out of Rotary. I've been involved with the club for over 20 years, and it was time for me to get into something else. And the $10,000 that John and Connie contributed to Florence Rotary, it needed to be more than just a one-time gift. It needed to be, John was involved. He joined Rotary in May of 2005. He was president of the club in 2009. He became district governor in 2014, and they passed away in 2020. It was a very short amount of time whenever he was involved. And when he got involved with something, he was passionate. And so I wanted to take that $10,000 and make it into something more and take it to that next level. And I remember what you're talking about whenever John came to speak to our club and talked about what it meant to provide that vaccine to that young child from Africa. John and Connie both passed away in the summer of 2020 within about a month of each other. And so when they provided this gift, we started to talk about how do we memorialize? How do we take this to the next level? And it all began over a cup of coffee. Dwayne had shared with me the magazine article that he read, and it planted a seed. We had that conversation, I would say probably April of 21, I would think, sometime in the spring. Maybe actually probably the year before that. It was right before you became president. When you're talking about a person or a couple, we're talking about a couple who dedicated their life to service. I had a lot of conversations with the family, with Connie's sister, with Beth and Meredith, in order to figure out how do we memorialize them. And the idea of the hand up grant, or I like to think of it as the hug. The hand up grant was something that we knew we wanted to use this money in order to help someone that had a barrier, You know, Connie was instrumental in helping women who were trying to pull themselves up from a bad situation. And I know from the many times that I was stuck with John in the passenger seat as he was driving me all around the back roads of Grant County, showing me everywhere that he ever scored a goal or hit a baseball or did something else. I know that he was also a person that understands and appreciates what it means to pull yourself up out of a difficult situation. So the efforts we went through in order to solidify the idea and identify who it is that's going to be the recipient. There was an initial approval from the Club Foundation, the Florence Rotary Club Foundation, which included a committee that was going to be pulled together in order to really figure out how is this going to be created. So I want to take just a moment to thank the folks who were instrumental in pulling this together. Jim Ferguson, who's not here because he's out delivering pumpkin pies. I got one of those today. Dwayne Frolicker, Carrie Herman, Barb Keeling, Pat Raverty, Leon Sample, Billy Santos, and Peter Wykenot, and also Don Volland, were folks that we gathered together, and it was a group effort and talking about how are we going to make this into something greater. We identified initially a target dollar amount. We wanted to raise around $50,000. And the $50,000 was just starting off from how much money would we have to have in order to spin off a couple $1,000s a year as an endowment. And that couple $1,000s a year would then be split up with the intention of $500 gift, maybe $750, $250, depending on what the need was. We started to solicit the gifts from many friends and family throughout Rotary. And the effort started to, we had a nice wave and a large number of contributions at the beginning, but things started to stall probably around the April or May timeframe. And so we had raised about $27, maybe $28,000 towards our $50,000 gift. And I'm not kidding you. This is how these things happen. I knew nothing happens. I know nothing happens without a deadline. And so I looked at the calendar. John's birthday is on Thursday, right? So John's birthday is on Thursday, November 24th. So I looked at the calendar and I said, we're going to either have we're going to have an event on November 21st, the week of Thanksgiving. And it's either going to be everybody pull out your checkbook, we got a big target to hit, or it's going to be congratulations, we were successful. We needed to have a deadline for this particular event. By chance, Dwayne bumps into Adriana. Adriana is a member of the Covington Club, and Dwayne is very excited about this idea of this hand up grant. And they got to talking. Adriana comes to a meeting in August. Dwayne's not there, and Adriana and I met, and she starts talking about this idea of a matching fund, the ability to take every dollar that was raised and match it to create an endowment at Gateway. And so Adriana and I, again, at that same Panera, met in order to talk through and to iron out the details. Ironically, Dwayne had an appointment just on the other side of the wall from us. So whenever we were finished, Dwayne was right there, and we were able to share with Dwayne what we had talked about. The Rotary Club Foundation and the Salyers family were all involved in saying, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. And the idea just continued to grow from there, where a gift from the Rotary Club Foundation for $30,000 would be given to Gateway, and it would be matched with federal dollars that needed to be allocated before the end of the federal fiscal year, which was September 30th. So now the $30,000 gift from all of the money that the Rotary Club had raised, plus the $30,000 from the federal government, and there's a funny point about that, would create a $60,000 endowment that every year will provide funds for students who have some kind of an unexpected emergency need. The thing I can't help, but I don't know if it's irony or what, but whenever I would travel with John, we would go to a whole lot of ribbon cuttings all up and down the AA highway, Northern Kentucky, going down to Carroll County. And John was always funny because our good friends from then Governor Fletcher's office would come into town, and they would be at the events, and they would be talking about how all these great state dollars were being used to benefit this particular community. And John was very quick to remind anybody that he could get within hand that these were actually federal dollars that rolled through the state, because he worked for a federal senator. And now here we are with a grant that is in, or an endowment that is created, where every dollar that we raise was matched by some of those federal dollars. I just see just a little bit of irony in that. The process of how this will go forward is that an instructor, and to give us some more details and talk about some of the specific needs, an instructor from Gateway will identify a need that there is with a student. That need will be vetted, and then once that need is vetted, then a contribution will be made, a check will be cut in order to take care of a variety of those expenses. So what I'd like to do now is take a moment. I think it would be appropriate for us to do a check presentation to Dr. Figueroa, and then have Dr. Figueroa, who's the president of Gateway, come up and speak and share with us a little bit more about how all of these funds are going to be used to honor John and Connie Salyers, to commemorate their life of service. So we'll do a quick check presentation, pose for a photograph, and then Dr. Figueroa, then if you would introduce your folks, and then we'll go from there. Now, where is the check? Perfect. Dwayne and Carrie, you guys want to come up here? If you're a member of the committee that helped, would you guys come on up here to participate in this. Peter, Billy, Leon. All right, Dr. Figueroa, why don't you come over here? Oh, yeah, there's Pat. Yeah, why don't you get in here? Yep.
All right, very good.
Yes. Adriana. Adriana, yeah, you need to get in here. You're definitely part of this as well. Very good. Thank you. Dr. Figueroa.
Sarah, you stay up here.
He knows all the work though. Do I have the,
I did.
Gonna let people know in TV land. Just welcome to Gateway. For some of you, this is your first time on the Boone campus. We have 3 campuses, one in Edgewood across from from St. Elizabeth's Thomas More campus, as well, Thomas More Parkway campus. And then of course we have our 2 buildings in the urban metro campus, as well as 275 and 17 is our transportation center. All that to say, welcome to Gateway. And for some of you, this is your first time being here. So glad you're here. And you'll get a little tour, I believe, from our Dean over Industrial Maintenance and Automotive and Transportation Technologies. But I just want to say a few things, and then I'll introduce Sarah to kind of explain the details on how this kind of works here. But one of the things that I've always been impressed with Gateway and been very fortunate that other folks who come in contact with our team say the mission comes first. We connect, engage, and inspire. And one of the things that we also like to share with folks is that 75% of our students work part-time or full-time as they're going through their credential, as they're going for their certificate or associate's degree, whether it lands immediately in a job or as part of the transfer. But I want you to understand the folks that you're helping are individuals that are working very, very hard, that are looking for any opportunity they can to make sure they reach the finish line. And an opportunity like this in honor of John and Connie and their mission and focused life really is an honor to this organization and to the college and the folks that will help bring this all together. So one of our great team members who's always been a champion for students and connecting to students what they need when they need it has been Sarah Young. And I wanted her to come give a few comments about what is it that is actually going to happen on the Gateway side. Please.
Welcome to Gateway, everyone. My name is Sarah Young. I'm the Community Resource Coordinator within the Counseling Department here at Gateway. I've been here 12 years. I'm a former Gateway student myself, so it's near and dear to my heart. Education is very important. It's a gateway to a better life. Some information that I wanted to share about the Student Emergency Fund. Over the last 12 months, we've supported around 40 students. And that's made a huge impact to these students. They are able to continue classes. They are able to continue working, continue living in apartments that they're renting. It is a huge, huge blessing to these students to be able to tap into the Student Emergency Fund. A little bit about it, they are vetted. So we like to look at the student holistically. We like to make sure they're tapping into any resources that they can. So state benefits, that sort of thing, our food pantry that's on campus. And we make sure that they're taken care of all the way around. I'm a former state employee myself, so I help them through that process so they're not stuck wondering what they need to turn in or the verification that they need. So we try to tap into community agencies as well. We tap into folks like the Brighton Center, CAC, St. Vincent de Paul, those great companies. And we see if there's any funds available first. So we are kind of a last resort, the Student Emergency Fund is. And they tap into it by providing instructor forms that show their current attendance and their current grade. So we can kind of see where they're at and make sure that they're attending class regularly and make sure that they're trying to succeed, trying to maintain at least an average grade. Students usually have a 2.5 or higher GPA, but like I said, we do have those instructor forms for them to fill out. if they fall below the 2.5 threshold. We also have the student tap into like any tutoring that they might need, any academic services that they might need as well. And then we propose it to the committee. We say the student is so-and-so, their current GPA, whether we have instructor forms or not. And if there's services out there in the agencies, out there in the community, they tap into those agencies first. So the student then gets a vote from the committee, and it's a committee of 4 within the counseling department here. They must meet with a member of the career services department, and they must also meet with financial services Brighton Center. So they go over their budget, they look at any things that they have outstanding, things they need to take care of, their credit. So we try to help them holistically. I'm a former Gateway student, like I said, and had it not been for Gateway, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I want to truly thank you all for this. It's an amazing opportunity for us. Thank you.
Many of you contributed towards John and Connie Salyers Hand Up Grant, and you know who you are, and I know who you are, and I want to just say thank you for those of you who contributed. Also, I know we didn't have an opportunity to do introductions, but I do know we have some friends from, I believe, from both Covington Rotary as well as Kenton County Rotary. Kenton County Rotarians, if you would raise your hand. Fantastic. And then thank you for coming. And then Covington Rotary, I think Florence, Tandy, welcome. We're glad that you're here. Thanks for coming to the Florence Rotary Club today. I want to say a word of thanks to Meredith and Beth. Your mom and dad were pretty special people. I know you know that. Everyone in this room knows that. And it's really quite an honor to be able to memorialize them in this way. They were pretty challenging to try to figure out where it was going to go. You know, when I asked, I don't remember who it was, Beth or Meredith, that said, you know, they loved Jesus Christ, they loved NKU basketball, they loved their family, and we continued to work through to identify where this money would be best served. And Adriana put it very, very well whenever she said that the kind of people that your mom and dad wanted to help are the folks that are here at Gateway. And I truly believe that. Sarah, I'm very pleased with what it is that you do. And the goal is that this time next year, we will be meeting back here, and we will hear from Sarah from counseling and whomever it is that you think would be appropriate to see how the fund did and what awards were granted over the course of last year, and to continue to honor John and Connie's legacy of service. So thank you all for everything that you've done to help out, and I'm gonna have Carrie to close out the meeting.
Thank you. All right. This was a very moving ceremony. You know, anyone who knew John, who knew Connie, I knew John, I didn't know Connie, I'll say that, gave to the community. So I think this is a great way for their legacy to live on. So this is just fabulous. Thank you. As I said, I'm going to close it out with some announcements. We are not meeting next Monday, so we have the day off. We will be back at the small house at the Nature Park on December 5th for our program then. And then anyone who is interested, once we close out this meeting, you can take a tour of the facility. If you have not been through this facility, I highly recommend it. I've been on the tour with a couple of my kids now. You really need to see what they're doing here. So I highly recommend that you stay for the tour. Anything for the good of the group?
Carrie?
Yes, sir.
You want to make a future donation, they contact Gateway or-
And All right, thank you. Anything else? All right,